Warning from Space, 1956 Japanese movie. This movie was made at the time when Toho started making special effects movies, and Dai also started making movies using special effects. Another historical drama, Daimajin, also produced by Dai, was produced 10 years later in 1966. Now, why did aliens appear in Tokyo? And what did they do in Tokyo or in Japan? I don't think there are many people who haven't seen this movie, but especially for those who haven't seen it, I think it's a very interesting question. Is it a war or some kind of warning? Can they speak the language? Is it the same shape as a human? Even if they are aliens, how far away from space are they visiting? Let's take a look. Scientist Komura Bontero Mayak goes to a bar near Shinmachi Station, which no longer exists, but was just before Hatsude, the second stop from Keio Shinjuku Station as usual, and then goes home. It was his daily routine to go home. Since the movie was set in 1956, the color of the train is chocolate, but apparently, it was a new train at the time. This movie was made when I was around 10 years old, so I was in 4th grade at an elementary school in Kurihara District, Miyagi Prefecture. A newspaper reporter, Kausagita, they met at the station, seemed to have something to talk each other at a bar called Uchikan, without even listening to the radio music being played. There are rumors about flying saucers, and the reporter asks him what they are. But Komura says he can't tell them, because nobody knows what they are. Yet, conscious of his responsibility as a scientist, after a while, the radio started making a loud noise, and they could no longer hear the music that was being played. Komura went home without thinking that there must be something blocking the radio waves. At the same time, Torosabi, Keizo Kawasaki, who works at the same observatory, was looking through the observatory's large telescope, and when he saw what looked like stars floating by, he decided that he couldn't just leave it alone. Visited Komura's house. Komura could imagine that it was an artificial satellite, but if that was the case, he would have been notified in advance. But he was still unable to conclude for sure. Around the same time, similar reports were made in India, but he was unable to determine whether it was a nuclear weapon from a certain country or a flying saucer. A boy at a nearby liquor store was interested in celestial bodies, and when he saw something flying in the air on a clothesline, he loudly exclaimed that it was a saucer. Komura's friend Matsuda Isao Yamagata, who is a doctor in physics, was consulted by Komura, and since he was flying a rocket at university and was about to take a photo, they decided to take a photo and find out what it was. However, the object in the photo was an even stronger light source, and even artificial satellites do not emit such good light, so they had no idea what it was. Around the same time, 2 men were fishing in the river when something shaped like a starfish suddenly appeared in the river, and they were startled and immediately ran away. At sea, the same object floated up on the quay, and the sailors fled in the same way. They also appeared in banquet halls, the Taito Theater nightclub, Lake Kawaguchi in Nagano, and Lake Biwa, and the number of locations and frequency gradually increased. At the World Congress, they appealed to the world to halt all satellite launches within 24 hours, as they were prepared to attack with 3-stage rocket launchers. At this point, the subtitles on the screen revealed that a conversation was being held between the aliens, who looked like people in the photo, who had appeared on Earth in a saucer. Their communication of ideas is telepathic, not audible words. Humans sometimes communicate their thoughts to others through their faces and gestures, but it is best to think of it as a more developed version of that. The contents of the conversation did not convey the intention of us Pyro people to visit Tokyo, and when the Earthlings saw us, they showed intense fear. It was as if he had seen something extremely hideous, of course. Humans are the only animals I've ever seen that stand on 2 feet and walk, and people living in any foreign country have almost the same faces. Earthlings are a pitiful race with a protrusion nose in the middle of their faces. However, if they continue to ignore the crisis on Earth, they will violate the morality of the universe. They won't be able to stand it unless the way they communicate their intentions becomes human. In this way, they use the transformation machine to change the starfish form into a human form. The level of Pyranians far exceeds that of Earthlings. The difference in level will appear later. What's more, instead of making her look like an ordinary person, she transformed herself into the currently famous and popular Hikari Ozora. It is judged that the effect is the best if it is a famous celebrity. The four scientists, Komaram, Suda, Asabi's dad Sayazo Nambu, and their families had come to the lake to enjoy their vacation with peace of mind, as no aliens had appeared recently. They are guessing that aliens' goal is to destroy the Earth, which is completely the opposite of what the aliens think. Isabi and Tayako Komura, Mieko Nagaya are having fun on a boat when they spot something in the distance that looks like a human wearing red clothing floating on the lake, and they pull it to the shore. When they looked closely, they saw that the person was a woman who looked exactly like Hikari Ozora. This woman, as mentioned above, succeeded in infiltrating the Earthlings. She is a high-level Pyranian, so she was alive from the time she was floating in the lake. However, this woman did not speak to everyone on the train as she returned to Tokyo. When she returns to Tokyo and plays tennis with Asabi, he discovers that not only does Hikari have a jumping ability that is superior to that of a normal human, but she also has the ability to pass through objects like doors, and she doesn't have fingerprints. Hikari, a pile person, comes to the place where the scientists are gathering, making a loud sound, and answers the scientists' questions as follows. I am not an Earthling, but I come from a faraway country called Pyra, which is not in our solar system. The reason is that Earthlings are using the atomic and hydrogen bombs incorrectly, which could lead to the end of life on Earth. From Pyra we can see many of Earth's atomic clouds. The reason why they came to Japan was because Japan was the only country in the world that was hit by an atomic bomb, and they thought that our explanation would be the best to understand. They have come to tell us that they use nuclear power only for peaceful purposes and maintain a high culture, and that our ultimate goal is that a new celestial body is about to collide with Earth. Surprised, the scientists say they must first prevent the new object R from colliding with Earth and propose two methods. One option was to either destroy her with atomic and hydrogen bombs all over the world, or to remove it from orbit. However, at this point, the World Congress had not been able to confirm the existence of the Pyrans, so when they went to the regions of Japan, let alone the rest of the world, it became a joke. Rural areas without information are truly dangerous at times like this. Once again, scientists made an effort to tell the world the truth. When the Japanese people heard the news that, according to the observation deck, they were on the verge of colliding with the Earth in 50 days, and that they were already approaching the Earth at a speed of 200 kilometers/s, they all ran for cover. The screen shows people fleeing under the subway stairs, people escaping by train, and Buddhism Nichiren sect believers beating drums and praying around temples. The streets of the big cities are empty of people. However, as Earth approaches, the rainstorm becomes stronger, and a screen appears that shows an increasingly hellish appearance. Nuclear water bombings were carried out simultaneously in countries around the world. However, no matter how long it took to see it through a telescope, it was not destroyed. Our will continued to move closer and closer to Earth. As evidence of this, animals died everywhere, large tsunamis occurred, rivers began to flow backwards, and the rivers turned into large rivers. The tsunami has also hit the observatory, and a large amount of water has entered the observatory. Dozens of children, who happened to be separated from their parents, are crying. It was like hell. By the way, Dr. Matsuda has been researching the element Urium-101, and Hikari, an alien, contacted him with information that if he completes the research and collides with R, the Earth can avoid collision. and the research is almost complete. That's what she said. Hikari told us that they would look for Mr. Matsuda and contact him. What a reliable culture and brain these aliens have. As I mentioned earlier, I told you that I would talk about it later. But this is what happened. Luckily, the Pyrran culture is not even on Earth's level. So if they complete Dr. Matsuda's equation, they will be able to somehow stop the destruction of Earth by the missile's collision. Dr. Matsuda was kidnapped by agents of a certain country, who tried to force him to write an equation. The Dr. Matsuda was saved from a dangerous situation by the Pyranian Hikari and her messengers, and he wrote an equation and gave it to Ginkgo Hikari with the promise that they would not leave it on Earth. Urium 101 was created by the Pyranians, and its explosive power destroyed our and saved the Earth. Thanks to Dr. Matsuda's personal research, he was able to save the Earth. There is a saying, the crutch that keeps you from falling. And even if you don't need to use it now, there is a good chance that you will use it in the near or distant future. Therefore, it may be a waste, but you should always have a cane ready to help you avoid falling. Under Hikari's instructions, Dr. Matsuda wears rings so that they can contact each other in case of an emergency. And Hikari also contacts Dr. Matsuda. When R and the missile collide, the building is destroyed by the shock of the explosion, and the humans lose consciousness, but they gradually regain consciousness. Other animals also started moving. A mole pokes its head out of its hole, a bird flies, a crab walks in the ocean, and a rabbit runs in the field. And both children and adults are happy to get out and run around. There is nothing more rewarding than peace. Now that the movie is over, let's take a moment to talk about what this movie wanted to say, and how it relates to religious issues in Russia and Ukraine, the Gaza Strip, and Israel and Palestine. These Pyranians are a benevolent race that came to Earth to warn against the development of atomic and hydrogen bombs. And the reason why they appeared in Japan was because they thought that since Japan was the only country in the world to suffer from a nuclear attack, Japanese would probably listen to their story. However, when the Earthlings saw the Pyranians, they fled in fear and were unable to communicate their intentions. So they disguised themselves and came to reassure the Japanese of their true intentions. Based on Japan's experience of being exposed to atomic bombs in the past, I found the idea that it was the Japanese people who truly understood their aims to be very persuasive. I felt truly grateful. However, in reality, nearly 70 years have passed since this movie was released, and even though Japan is a country that should take the lead in disseminating the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons to the rest of the world, it still does not support the treaty. And even though there are 4 tectonic plates that cause earthquakes running across Japan, there are too many nuclear power plants, which are the most dangerous source of energy. Does anyone know the reason for this? This is my personal opinion, but I think it's because we have to subordinate to America's opinion because of the security treaty with the United States. After its defeat in the war, Japan still operates under the direction of the United States in many aspects, so I don't think it can be called an independent country. This is the first one. Next, the idea behind this movie is that rather than aiming for special effects, I feel that the theme is world peace. I feel that there is a strong desire for Japan to play an active role as a leader for world peace, just like the Pyra people in this movie. No other country has chosen Japan as a country and chosen Japan as the leader of world peace like the Pyra people. I think there are individual cases. For example, people from Aiken are foreigners working at the atomic bomb memorial museums in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Next, I will give my opinion on how we should change the world. 1. Soldiers who have quit the war and joined the military will be assigned jobs such as saving lives in natural disasters and providing support to undeveloped countries. There are said to be 24 countries currently at war in the world. If you include civil war, the number will increase even more and the future will be in jeopardy. Therefore, those who quit their respective countries' militaries and are currently serving as soldiers have, at their request, worked in jobs similar to those of Japan's self-defense forces, responding to natural disasters, climate change, etc. By doing major work such as road construction, cleaning up after earthquakes, construction of canals to avoid irrigation for saving lives. They should be changed so that they are given the job of rebuilding the country. Of course, cleaning up the aftermath of droughts, floods, or earthquakes, and tsunamis in other countries is not limited to domestic work, so we have people go overseas and take on the task of helping each other. Those who served in the military were paid wages in countries with conscription, so if a system was established to pay a stable salary to all members, fewer people would lose their jobs. I'm sure more young people will be willing to participate voluntarily because they won't be killing people, and the world will become better friends. 2. The main premise is to stop war. In addition, since the United Nations is a meeting of the countries that won World War II, we will abolish the United Nations and create a new international conference so that all countries have equal rights and can participate in the conference. There is no need to include veto rights or anything like that. This is because the United Nations itself is set up to favor the great powers. 3. Under current international law in Japan, the government has police and prosecutors, which can arrest, prosecute, and punish people who violate the law. But there is no such institution. Therefore, it is necessary to establish such an institution. 4. Which country will take on these issues as a leader and solve them? I want to praise Japan and the Japanese people, even if it's called self-praise. There are many reasons for this, but I would like to list 4. One basis is how Japan and people around the world view it. The number of tourists visiting Japan from all over the world has increased again once the coronavirus subsides. The reason why I'm interested in Japan is because the nature is rich and beautiful. The food is delicious, and the quality of all products is good. The people are kind and safest country in the world. This is because tourists feel that the beauty of humans and nature comes from good traditions. And this comes from the hard work of the Japanese. Japanese who have this kind of national character are sure to be trusted by the world. This is the reason. Second, the way people ride the train is an attempt to maintain group discipline and achieve harmony. First of all, when I'm waiting, I form a line, rarely pass people, and try to get into the train in an orderly manner. This is evidence that they value order without expressing their personal interests on the surface. This was also the case for those affected by the Great East Japan earthquake in 2011, who lined up in an orderly manner to receive relief supplies. What would happen if we took this to the world? Those who do not try to maintain order in their lives cannot maintain order in the world. The Japanese are exemplary in this respect as well. The third reason is that Japanese value groups. This way of thinking is based on the spirit of oneness of self and other. The concept of unity between self and others is based on the idea that although the body is physically separate from the other person, the fundamentals of life are the same, so we should do our best for others. It is a far cry from Western individualism. The Japanese who have this kind of thinking deeply rooted in them are the most suitable people to be world leaders. I would like to end with what the famous Einstein said. The future of the world will advance as much as it advances, and in the meantime, battles will be repeated over and over again, and a time will come when the battles will finally tire. The time will come when humanity will have to seek true peace and become a global leader. This world leader must not be the power of arms or money, but rather the oldest and most honorable family that transcends the history of any nation. The world's culture begins in Asia and returns to Asia. We must return to Japan, the pinnacle of Asia. We thank God. God created us a precious country called Japan.